Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old black teenager who on 4th of July was celebrating with his friends, and he went out on Horn Island. His 3 other friends, at least what we have in the photograph, they were young white teenagers. He was the only black teenager. Somehow they all came back home safely on the 4th of July, but Nolan Wells did not. His mother, their families announced that he was missing. They were, out of their mind. His body was found washed up on shore 2 days later, face down, dead. Well, what happened?
Sometimes things, we move so fast. We listen to Ben Crump talking, and there's a lot of details sometimes that we hear, but we don't quite listen to them. Nolan Wells was missing, and they found his body 2 days later, washed up on shore, face down. Think about that. Your mother, your son is gone. You don't know where he's at. And that has to hurt. Not only the fact that he was found and he's dead, but face down into the sand. I don't think anybody would want their loved one to end up, even in their death, in undignified manner of being face down into dirt. Sometimes we have to kind of take a moment just for that one thing and think about that. That's terrible.
And what we've been saying, somebody knows something, somebody saw something. There was a young lady named Katie who said that she was talking to Nolan, but then he got back on the boat with the people he came with, or got back on the boat with the boys. And the boys who were on the boat with him said, Nolan said he was gonna stay behind with Katie, and that he was not going to go back with them. One of the things that has been bewildering is the fact that if he says he's gonna stay behind, why doesn't an 18-year-old get their cell phone? If they're not going to go with the boat, why would they leave it with them?
Think about that for a second. Think about how likely it is. Picture this in your mind, this scenario, and think about how likely this actually is. You're out having fun with your friends in the boat. Of course, you all put your phones in the boat because you're in the water, and it makes the only sense to have it somewhere dry, of course. You know where your phone is. Everyone knows where their phone is. When you put your phone away somewhere, you know where it's at, because you plan on coming back to get it, and you know exactly where you put it. And he knows his phone is on the boat, right? And he tells them, "Hey guys, you guys can go ahead and go without me. I'm gonna find another way back to shore." You mean to tell me that he said this to you while his phone was on the boat, and he let y'all leave? No. I don't buy that one bit. Not one bit. It just doesn't pan out right. It doesn't sound right. No. Not, especially an 18-year-old. Maybe a feeble-minded person like myself, even though I highly doubt that I would do that, but maybe. I don't think that he would. Their phones at that age is another arm. You're not gonna leave your arm behind.
They started getting concerned, and it was when they did the Life 360, trying to say, find my phone, is when she found out that the phone was with the friends. Her friend went to get the phone, and when they got the phone back, they discovered that there were a lot of Snapchat messages that were deleted. They also found that there were some texts deleted. So that was very concerning to them as they're trying to figure out, what happened to my child? Our child is dead and we have no answers. Nobody's telling us anything. he says, I'm gonna stay behind, but he leaves his cell phone. He doesn't have his car keys, you know. Well, if he's staying behind and you don't have any of that information, people are saying, did he stay behind? And so that becomes a question. People say they hear certain things. We have retained audio engineering experts be able to decipher and to render expert opinions on the validity of the CTO 911 audio that seems to suggest things about the presence of Nolan. And so we are trying not to speculate, we're trying to investigate, but we are asking questions that don't add up to us. And that's what everybody's been doing, because everybody says, how can this 18-year-old college football player who's in tip-top shape just go missing and nobody knows anything? Nobody's seen anything. And the sheriff within, hours after he was discovered, his dead body, they claimed that, that no foul play, accidental drowning is what they suggest.
A lot of these cases we don't hear about. So think about how many of these types of cases get swept under the rug every year, and they probably thought that this was another situation. We're going to just sweep it under the rug. It was just an accidental drowning, wipe my hands off of it. Just, we're good, we're gone, that's it, no story. And that's what they expected for you to just say, okay, cool, because it's Black. They don't think that Black people are going to garner as much attention, and they don't. In the media, otherwise, they don't garner that much attention. A lot of times, we as Black people, especially in these small towns, many times we defer to the professionals. And if this policeman, this chief of police come out and says something like this sheriff comes out and says something like this, I have no reason to think that he would lie to me. But unfortunately, you can't be naive like that. We always have to suspect. And the thing about this is that a lot of the kids that Officer Tate has interviewed, all were like, our community is so much better than that. We are all together. We're all banded as one, and we don't see color and all of this other stuff. It's just, bullshit. They just don't want for that community to look racist, but it is a racist. It's Mississippi. You can't help but be racist.
In our community, we see people investigated very zealously. And so we want the same thing for our children. We want them to zealously investigate this matter, just as if they would if the roles were reversed. And that's what I think has people in the minority community saying, hold on, we want to know what's on everybody's phone. We want to know social media, because all of that could become very relevant information as to what happened to Nolan Wells.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the woman that Nolan was hanging out with when he was at the island, Katie, her sister, Gracie, came out and said that Nolan intended to go back to the mainland with his friends, right?
Yeah, there seems to be a conflict in what they're saying. They said he stayed with the young lady. The young lady said no, he got back on the boat. That seems to be one of the biggest issues that everybody is trying to figure out, as well as the independent autopsy where he had red discoloration at the back of his brain, and also the fact that the initial state medical examiner kept possession of Nolan Wells' throat, and we don't know why they did that. Our pathologist, Dr. Roger Mitchell, said when he was the chief medical examiner for the city of Washington, D.C., that they normally would do that it wasn't uncommon if they suspected that there might be some fracture or some compressions to the throat.
So after y'all did the autopsy, from what you know, what do you believe that was on the back of his neck?
We think Dr. Roger Mitchell should have the benefit of looking at all the autopsy notes and observations and photographs from the first autopsy, and then have, the state medical examiner be able to look at all of his notes from the second autopsy and try to work together to figure out what conclusions that they can draw from the autopsies, both of them. And then also waiting for toxicology, that becomes a factor in finding out the manner and cause of death. But Dr. Mitchell said, and this is very, very important, he said, if it's a drowning, then that still doesn't answer the whole question of what happened to Nolan Wells, because he said then there are questions about, was Nolan Wells' condition of his body conscious or unconscious when he went into the water? Furthermore, he said, did he go into the water unforced or forced? He said all those things become factors. We want answers, as I've said over and over again. I am for truth, no matter who it implicates or who it exonerates. I am for justice, no matter who it convicts or who it acquits. And I am certainly for transparency, so all of us can see, and we can have trust in the system that this was a fair, impartial, and complete investigation. That's what everybody would want if this was their child.
And the fact that they're taking so long to get the answers, I wonder. So it's one of those situations we don't know because of them taking so long. We don't know because they don't say anything. And to me, it's like they're purposefully not saying anything. They could give updates that wouldn't, be an issue with the grand jury and all this other stuff. They could tell you some stuff, but they choose not to say anything at all. And I can't help but think it's because they just don't want to feel like that they're being forced to do anything from these black people. Benjamin Crump, Al Sharpton, they're demanding this stuff. We're not going to tell them nothing until we're ready to tell them. I think that's a part of it. But what we do is, and another thing that Officer Tatum does as well, is that whatever his disdain is for Benjamin Crump, or their disdain is for Benjamin Crump, Al Sharpton, they're painting the family in the same brush. It's like they're just trying to get help. Like, just because you don't like them doesn't mean that the family deserves any of your vitriol because of how much you hate them. Why do you hate them? People, what I find out a lot of times is white people do not like anybody who stirs up shit. So if I got good niggas in my town and, they're kind of subservient and they don't cause no problems and have no issues, I have no issues with my good niggas in my town. And here you come, you black uppity nigga, and you're gonna try to tell my good black people to be upset about this and that and try to bring all that racist shit into my town and try to expose all this racial shit that we have been going on for so long, and you're trying to shed some light on it. How dare you? Fuck you, Ben Crump. Fuck you, Al Sharpton. How dare you try to come to my community and call us racist? You're racist. You know what I mean? That's what they do. They'll turn it around and say that you're racist because you're taking up for a particular situation where race is typically involved. This is Mississippi. You got a long history of fuck shit. So you can't not act like you can't understand why somebody would want to bring in a civil rights lawyer in. Like, how can you be mad at that? It's like everybody's mad at the family and what they're doing rather than trying to get to the bottom of it. Everybody wants to villainize the family. Even Nolan's friends, who's supposed to be his best friends, talk bad about Miss Christine. And she should know me. How come she don't know me? I was at her house. Man, she's going through so much. Why would you care? Just say, maybe she just don't recall, but, because she's not, she's going through some things. That's what I would do. Think about it for a moment. If your best friend had died, and you have, let's say, been around his mom before, talked to his mom, been in the house before. Not a lot, because she would probably have known you. And then it comes to the point where she says, well, I don't know him. Why? I wouldn't be mad at the mother. Like, she's grieving. Like, you should understand that if that's your best friend, then you shouldn't have any kind of hatred at all for his mom. But what everyone in this community seems to be doing right now is hating on the mother, and they're not getting any protection. There's been, there's been an arrest in this Nolan Wells case. Seriously, it has been. It has been an arrest in this Nolan Wells case. But it's not who you think it might be, not who you'd hope it would be. It's just some person who sent death threats to Warren's mother, the judge lady. Somebody sent a death threat to her, and they found that person. Meanwhile, Miss Christine's getting all these death threats, getting all these bad views for her job. She's being attacked left and right, and no one has gone to jail for what they've done to her or to their son. And that's just terrible. But that just goes to show you that this is the type of thing that we deal with. This is par for the course. We're not, surprised at that. They've been getting on for so long. And, I think it's going to be something like this where, and not just this, but also compounded with how, the Trump administration is so racist, that people are really opening their eyes up and thinking that, you might have thought that we were a post-racist society because we elected Barack Obama. So we elected Barack Obama, but you know what they say, whenever there is a force this way, there's going to be equal and opposite force that way. And so we made it to the point where we elected a black person. But you know what? That momentum from going that high, it's got to come down with more momentum. And you got the Tea Party and all that other bullshit, all these other Republicans coming out there losing their mind, trying to tell Obama was this and that. Okay? That's that pendulum swinging back. And then they swing back so damn far because they got upset that there was somebody black in charge, the president, and he was excellent. They didn't like that. So the pendulum swung even further and harder back, and we got Trump. And now it's 2026 and we're fucked. We're in this war, gas prices are high, food is high. We're in the most racist hotbed of racial tension right now in America. Throughout the world, actually, it's crazy all over the place. This racial shit is crazy because, what is it, 400,000 years that Homo sapiens has been walking around? We've been men for that long. And all those hundreds of thousands of years, there was never ever any issues as far as anyone feeling like they were better or you were worse for your race because of your race. It used to be about where you were from, as far as like, if you were from France, if you were an Irishman, or if you were, from wherever. Now it's about race. That's all that matters. Back then, none of that race didn't matter at all. Isn't that crazy to think that there was a time when race didn't matter at all? And, that was for a long time, up until the point where you can say about 600 years ago or less, where they decided that, we should treat people differently based on their race. That was a white man's concept. That's all it is. It's a white man's concept, and he used it to justify chattel slavery. Since black people weren't about anything, we were next to animals, basically. We didn't have spirit, we didn't have feelings, basically. You have to think that. You have to, as a white person, to do all the inhumane things that you did to black people, you'd have to in your mind believe that they're not human, that these are a whole different animal that you can use and abuse, and that it's, they don't have a spirit, and you shouldn't feel guilty for it. That's how they put us, so they could justify doing that. And the horrors that they committed on black people means that they had to think more and more and more and less of you. The worse that they were to you, the less they thought of you. So much to the point where they thought that we had tails. They said we had thick skin, we don't feel pain the same. All this dumb shit. Stuff that even today still causes our black women to have a more black women lose their child or die in childbirth than white women by a lot. And it's because they think that we have some kind of level of pain tolerance that we don't need pain medicine, that we don't need certain things. That's just, and you know, that's just the way it is. That's the way it's always been. And I mean, it's just terrible. It's terrible. Nolan Wells, what happened to him is basically what happens when you are outnumbered, when you're a minority to a bunch of white people. I can tell you a story. I can tell you what happened to me. You know, I'm of a mixed relationship. My father was white, my mom was black. I spent a lot of time with my dad. We went a lot of places, you know. He took me to like amusement parks. We went to the lake. There's this, you know, thing that we did where we went to this kind of like a lake that had a swimming area and an arcade nearby. You know, it was really cool. And I remember one time, you know, we went there a few times. And I was maybe like, you know, 9, 10. And I somehow got away from him, or he got away from me somehow. And which wasn't too bad because I knew where I was. I knew, you know, I had been there before and he might have ran to go use the bathroom or something. But I remember being a younger kid and there being older kids, white boys, and this place was totally white. It was like these older white kids who kind of circled me and were calling me names and like pushing me and telling me that I was ugly because I was black and I had brown skin, and they were just being really, really mean to me, and I was scared to death. And you know, we're a pretty crowded area. There's a lot of people around, and I looked at older, you know, adult white people that, you know, I was hoping that they would help me. I'm like, you know, y'all see what's going on? Like these kids are like, you know, bullying me, and I'm much younger. Like, you know, this isn't cool. But I would look at them. I would look at these adults as they walk by, look right in their eyes while these kids are doing this to me, and they look away. They saw me, they looked dead in my eye, but they just walked away. They didn't care. And that was scary. And I was very scared until I was able to meet back up with my dad somehow, somewhere. But I'll never forget that. That's how I know when you are a minority amongst white people, they will treat you very terribly. When you're a minority, it's like a lynch mentality. When there's more and more people who are all on the same accord and they all hate you, it can get very dangerous. One person could throw a rock and hit you, and that might start off everyone. You know, it's something can kick off. And that's how a lot of black men, I'm sure, all throughout history have died at the hands of white people who had this lynch mob mentality and had all of these crazy, like deranged ideas in their minds about black people, so much so that they thought it was okay to just hang you up on a tree and watch you die. And those postcards where there were young kids, a little girl smiling as she's watching the black man hang, dangled from a tree, and she's smirking at it. They didn't think that they thought we were animals, less than animals. She was smiling. You think that if it was a puppy being hung up there, you think she'd be smiling? No. She'd be terrified. She'd be sobbing. But a black man, it's funny. And the thing is, white people, we can talk until I'm blue in the face. When you have it in your head that you just don't like black people and you have no empathy at all, you're done. There's no convincing you. I used to be naive and think that every person deep down is good. And if you talk to them and you have the patience and you are very genuine and you show them love, that you can bring out that goodness. But no, I think there are people who just don't have it, and that's sad. I used to think that anybody could be reached. But now I don't think so. There's atrocities that are happening, and there are people, white people, who laugh about it, think it's funny. There's no emotion, there's no empathy, there's no care at all. And I don't understand how there could be people who are like that. And there's no one more like that as a group than white people. Y'all are trying to take back black people's rights, trying to make it hard for us to vote, gerrymandering, all of this to suppress us because you're afraid.